If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
Hi, everyone. I am James Yodice. I am the high school sports editor of the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome to Preps Central, the Journal's high school podcast. Welcome. It is Wednesday, October 1st. As I sit here today in our studio, the high school football season will be over on November 1st on a Saturday. So we're down to the last 5 weekends of the regular season. We've passed the middle point. Hard to believe it goes by so fast, doesn't it? So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the key matchups coming up here in Week 7, and we'll reflect a little bit on Week 6. Week 6 was very, very short on big games. We had just a ton of teams on their bye weeks, so we didn't have a bunch of great matchups coming off last weekend. First things first, let's talk about this coming weekend. So District 2-6A and District 3-6A, they are both already into their district schedules because those districts are a little bit bigger. District 2, some teams have already played a couple of district games. District 3, they've gotten started in the last week or two as well. District 1-6A will start this week. All the teams in that district had a bye week last week. So it's a 6-team district, so they're all going to play 5 games over the last 5 weeks, while the other districts will have some bye weeks for certain teams still mixed in. So as we return to the schedule, we've got in District 1, 6A, we've got Cleveland, which is playing at Farmington. And as a quick side note, Evan Nanez, the sophomore, who's just been tremendous for the Storm this year, suffered a bit of a knee injury in Cleveland's most recent game. That was against El Paso Pebble Hills. I talked to Cleveland coach Robert Garza last weekend. He does expect Evan Nanez to miss some time. How much time, I do not know. I think at least this week he won't play, maybe even the next week. I'm not sure. I mean, look, Cleveland's going to need him healthy for the end of the regular season when they play Volcano Vista and Rio Rancho. So we'll see how long he is out. I don't think Cleveland's going to want to rush him back. They should be okay for the next couple of weeks at least. Against the 2 Farmington schools and perhaps even Cibola. So Cleveland opens their district schedule in Farmington, and Farmington just took La Cueva to overtime a couple of weeks ago, so I know that probably has Coach Garza's attention. You have Volcano Vista is playing Piedra Vista on Thursday night here in Albuquerque. I'll be covering that game on Thursday night. I'll be interested to see Piedra Vista. They're one of those teams to me that's right on the playoff bubble. Don't know how it's going to shake out. We're going to talk. One of my guests today, we're going to talk about that a little bit later in terms of thinking about the playoff teams, the 12 playoff teams that we might get out of Class 6A. And then the other game in District 1-6A is Friday night. I'll be at that game as well. That will also be at Community Stadium. That will be Rio Rancho taking on Cibola. Rio Rancho coming off a 3-game losing streak, but we're talking about losses to Las Cruces, Centennial, and El Paso East Lake, 3 really good teams. So I don't think we should hit the panic button on Rio Rancho at all. This was always going to be a very tough stretch for them. Cibola is 4-1. Cibola's won 4 in a row. They could easily be 5-0. They lost a lead in the last minute of the game in the season opener to Albuquerque High. Otherwise, they would be 5-0 as we start this game. So I'm really interested. To me, this is one of the really fun games this week. And Rio Rancho and Cibola, before Cleveland ever opened, Rio Rancho and Cibola had a tremendous football rivalry, and it's still a very good one. Of course, Rio Rancho now has Cleveland as their primary rival. Cibola now has Volcano Vista as their primary rival. But before Cleveland, before Volcano Vista, Rio Rancho and Cibola had a lot of fun games over the years. So I've not done a Rio Rancho Cibola game in a long time, mostly because Cibola's been down a bit. So I'm looking forward to that. So those are the games I'm interested in seeing how it goes this weekend. I don't think there are any tremendously huge games outside of District 1 this week. Nothing that catches my attention. If we're thinking about Class 5A football, the big game, Roswell against Gadsden. Now, Roswell's been kind of hard to figure. They have a couple of results that have been a little off for them by their standards. This is a big game for Gadsden. Gadsden's already been beaten by Artesia, and they lost last week to Gadsden, to Goddard, 28-27. So Gadsden suddenly is in a position where, they're falling down the district standings a bit, and they could use a big win in a big way. So you're talking about Roswell, who's ranked number 2 in Class 5A. Gadsden has dropped, I believe, to 4 or 5. Forgive me for not remembering for sure off the top of my head. Artesia continues to lead the way in 5A. 2 weeks ago, Artesia won at Gadsden in a game that got called at halftime because of weather, but Artesia was up 4 touchdowns. Gadsden was ranked number 3 in that game. Lovington moved into the 3 spot in Class 5A by the coaches poll. Now, I'm using the coaches voting, not the Max Preps poll, the computer poll. Lovington moved into the number 3 spot last week. Artesia played them, had a pretty convincing win over Lovington as well. So Artesia is clearly setting the standard in 5A. And they look to be clearly the best team right now. And they still have some tough tests ahead. They still have to play Goddard. Of course, they still have to play Roswell down the road later this month as well. One of the big results from last week was in 4A. St. Pius, without their starting quarterback, Isaiah Carpenter, their big 6'5" quarterback who has, in my opinion, just the strongest right arm of any quarterback in any class in the state. I would die on that hill. They go down to Silver City and beat Silver. I believe it was 34-14. They got another big game from their running back, their very special running back, Herschel Holloway Jr., who is a junior. And he went for, I think, over 240 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he's just such a special weapon. So St. Pius went down, overcame the absence of their quarterback, who I do believe is coming back this week. On Saturday, I'll be covering St. Pius and Albuquerque Academy. And I haven't seen either team in person yet. I am told by Curtis Flakes, the St. Pius coach, that he expects Isaiah Carpenter back in the lineup on Saturday. And, St. Pius is incredibly dangerous, as we have seen, without him. But to get him back would be just a huge boost for Pius now that we're into October. Pius still has some tough games ahead. They still have to play Chaparral, a team that's just kind of come off the grid a little bit from nowhere, and now I think ranked 4th in the coaches poll. They were unranked just a couple of weeks ago, I think. They still have to play. St. Pius still has to play Manzano. They still have to play Academy, who is dangerous. Gage Conway, who's Academy's best athlete, has just been doing some kicking the last couple of weeks, but he is special to them on the offensive side of the ball, especially as a receiver. I do believe he's going to be coming back this week. I don't know that 100%, but I believe he'll be back this week. So that'll be an extra thing for St. Pius's defense to think about. So, so we're getting into the meat now that we're into October. Every week is going to be filled with really a whole lot of great games. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to have 2 guests today. I'm glad to report. I've been really, and I've said this in previous podcasts, I'm really excited that we've been able to bring some guests in remotely, which adds, I think, a great deal to the podcast. Nobody wants to sit here and listen to me for 30 minutes straight, including me. So it's been great to have them in there. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest. He is Kaiden Reese from Las Lunas High School. He is the Tigers quarterback. Las Lunas plays Albuquerque High on Saturday. Las Lunas started the year 0-2. They've won their last 3, including a very big win week before last, actually a couple of weeks back now, against El Dorado. So Las Lunas plays Albuquerque High, which is a dangerous team, not to be overlooked, on Saturday. And then Las Lunas has a huge game, potentially a district championship game, next week at home against La Cueva. Those 2 teams look like they're the 2 best teams in the district. I don't think anybody would dispute that. And the winner of that game almost certainly is going to be the regular season district champion. I don't see any other team really getting in the way. La Cueva has to take care of El Dorado first, La Cueva and El Dorado, which is always such a great rivalry game. They're playing on Friday night this week at Wilson Stadium. And you can never tell about a rivalry game, but, La Cueva's got their season going in the right direction now. So if La Cueva and Los Lunas take care of business this week, they're going to have a huge showdown. Like I said, in essence, that the winner of this game wins the district, barring something completely unforeseen or, like a rash of injuries or something like that. So that is where we're at. So let's get to my interview that I conducted a little bit earlier today with Kaiden Reese. Enjoy. Okay, so as promised, the first of our two guests today, he is Kaiden Reese. He is the quarterback for the Los Lunas Tigers. Los Lunas has a couple of key games coming up on their schedule. The first one being this Saturday, I think, against Albuquerque High. And then the Tigers have a humongous home game, which I'll be at next week against La Cueva. Kaiden, welcome. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So let's talk about this team a little bit. You guys are 3-2. And I'm thinking back to the start. I was at the Cleveland game in week 2, and Cleveland put it to you guys pretty good. And you were already coming off a tough opening season loss to Roswell. So
Yes.
you played both of the defending state champions in 5A and 6A. You guys kind of take your lumps. And I'm curious, now that you've won 3 in a row, Los Lunas is 3-2 as we talk today.
Yes, sir.
What was the message from Coach Hennington, Greg Hennington, your head coach, after the Cleveland game? You guys were 0-2. Neither one of those games was a bad loss, but what was the message as you guys got through that tough opening couple of games about just staying the course?
The message was, obviously we faced the 2 defending state champions, so it was a little bit of a rough start to our schedule. And pretty much it was just to kind of get over it in a sense and just get better as we go.
So from your perspective,
Mhm.
what did you guys take away from those first 2 games? You're talking about 2 of the state's best programs. Not that you guys are not one of them, but Roswell and Cleveland are both very elite. So I'm curious, as a player on this team, and maybe you can speak a little bit for the team itself, what did you guys take away from those 2 games where you weren't terribly competitive and the offense struggled a little bit? But
Yes, sir.
when you guys came back to school that Monday to start week 3 before you played Farmington, I think, what were the thoughts from the guys about some of the positives that you could take away from those first 2 games?
Some of the positives that we took were just not giving up, because any other team, if they're losing that bad, I guess they just kind of want to give up. But with us, we just kept pushing. We know what the goal is for the season, so we just kept it pushing, and we didn't let it phase us.
Right. So I thought, a key turning point was not even so much, we'll talk about the El Dorado game in a second, but you guys went to Farmington and very much needed a win. Just I probably psychologically more than anything else, because you got to jump right into district the next week against El Dorado. So you guys went up to Farmington, had a strong second half. If I remember, I want to say you guys scored 4 or 5 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of that game. Am I right about that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So you finished strong against Farmington. And look, this is a team that took La Cueva to overtime just a couple of weeks ago. So you go up there, you get that much needed win, which was nice psychologically just to get the season going in the right direction. But then you have this home game with El Dorado where you start up 21-0, give up that whole lead, and you're trailing 22-21, and then you guys had to score kind of late to win it 28-22. In hindsight, that to me seems like a very crucial result for this team, and I'm wondering if the guys felt that way as well, knowing that you still had La Cueva to play.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So it was definitely crucial. There at the start, we came out strong. We knew what to do. Offense was there, defense was there, and then I think at half we kind of just like mellowed out. We were just like, oh, we have them. Like, we had that type of mindset, and so that kind of bit us.
Right, and coaches tell kids all the time, don't get that way. Keep your foot down, keep your foot down on the pedal, and don't let up.
Yes, sir.
But hey, look, teenagers, sometimes they hear one thing and you're up 21-0, and you're like, yeah, we're good. Things can get away in a hurry sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you get this win, and then you're coming off a win over. Remind me who your latest win. You played West Mesa 2 weeks ago, and then you were Idle last week. So now we jump into the last 5 games. So let's look ahead a bit. Albuquerque High can play a bit. I've seen them. They're not a bad team. They're not one of Class 6A's elite teams, but they're one of those teams. You can't really sleep on them. You guys are going to come into this game favored for sure. But let's talk about Albuquerque High first. They got some kids that can play, and you guys cannot afford to get caught looking ahead to La Cueva next week.
Yeah, no, sir. I mean, that was the focus. All last week was just making sure that we're ready for Albuquerque High first, and then La Cueva. And I mean, like you said, we can't look past Albuquerque High because they're a very physical team. They don't give up. They have a lot of fight in them. So I think it'll be a really good game.
I remember talking to Coach Hennington, Greg Hennington, who's the Los Lunas head coach. We were talking back in August before anybody had started the season, and he and I were just chatting about your team. And as I usually ask coaches, about how they look at their season and how they think it might project, Coach Hennington was very optimistic about this team. I mean, he knew, just like we all knew, that the first 2 games on your schedule were going to be very demanding, and they were. But
yes, sir.
Coach Hennington told me he likes this team. He liked the upside potential of this team and felt like you guys were going to have a chance to compete for a lot this year, starting with a district championship. And I'm wondering if we go back to the end of last season when you guys went out in the playoffs and we got started with the offseason, whether you guys felt that way as well. Like, you know what, if we stay healthy and motivated, there's no reason we can't accomplish a lot in 2025.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, let's talk about that, expand on that a little bit for me about this team's approach to the offseason and how you think it could manifest itself here, over the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's focus is there. I mean, after those first 2 losses, I think it definitely lit a fire under us, and it got us more hungry for a win. And I think now we're really hungry to make history for our high school for winning the first 6A district championship.
Right. So, and La Cueva's coming down there to play you. As I sit here today with you, it's Wednesday, October 1st. You play Albuquerque High Saturday, and then you host La Cueva on a short week now.
Yes, sir.
Next Friday night. The guy, I'm curious if you guys have watched any film on La Cueva yet, or coaching staffs are usually very careful about this, and they're like, I don't want to show any film on any team that we're not playing yet, meaning we're going to watch Albuquerque High film this week. We're not going to think about anything except them. And then whenever this game is over, then we'll sit down and start breaking down film on La Cueva. But I'm curious, as a player, have you had a chance to watch this team, this La Cueva team?
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm trying to keep it to a minimum because obviously the focus this week is Albuquerque High. But yes, I have watched some film on La Cueva, and they look pretty physical. I mean, they had a rough start as well, but I mean, we can't look over them.
Right. So look, this offense, which you quarterback, was struggling a bit through the Roswell game, through the Cleveland game, through the first maybe even 2.5, 3 quarters of the Farmington game. And then you guys seem to find everything in that fourth quarter in Farmington. Was there anything that just suddenly happened or clicked with this offense there? And we're thinking about the Farmington game now from a couple of weeks ago. Was there anything in particular that just suddenly, boom, it just clicked into place and you're like, okay, I think we found what we need to do now?
Yeah. So the first half, we didn't have a bad first half at all. I mean, so at halftime, I got with my lineman, we talked, and we went over what we needed to do in order to move the ball a lot more. And I think after that talk, it really just motivated us to be better at moving the ball in that second half.
Would you say that, this happens sometimes in sports, you guys, you found that, and then when you started preparation for El Dorado the next week, you felt everything like a weight had been lifted a little bit off this offense. Like, okay, we had that one great quarter, now we just have to find a way to sustain it over 48 minutes.
Yes, sir. It definitely felt like after that, everything just clicked with the offense, wide receivers, O-line, everyone. Yeah. So it was definitely a really good feeling.
So you are, if memory serves, you're a lefty.
Yes, sir.
So look, I'm a Dolphins fan. I got as a matter of fact, I have my Dolphins polo shirt on today, and I'm continually frustrated by our quarterback, who's a lefty, Tua Tagovailoa. Are there challenges for a left-handed quarterback that don't exist for a right-handed quarterback?
Honestly, I think us and righties have the same problem sometimes, just having to flip our hips different ways. I think maybe with our wide receivers, it could be a problem because say they're used to a right-handed quarterback and then a lefty comes in, the spin on the ball and the way it drops is a whole lot different than a righty.
Yeah, I watch Tua sometimes, and I just want to bang my head against my TV. Watching him, it can be very frustrating. And look,
Yeah.
if you're going to play quarterback at Los Lunas, that's a key position. Los Lunas has had a nice run. If I'm thinking about the last 5 or 6 years, even going back to when Los Lunas was in the state finals before it went to 6A, when it was a 5A school. Los Lunas has had a nice run at the quarterback position. We always think about Artesia being the gold standard for quarterbacks, and that's usually true. But Los Lunas has had a really good run of quarterbacks, and I'm wondering, you've come up through the system. You've watched these guys, and I'm wondering if you felt that way when you stepped in, like, I have to carry this on.
Yes, sir. I mean, after Paul, I definitely felt a little bit of pressure because he was the first quarterback at Los Lunas to win a state championship.
And we're talking about Paul Siermans.
Yes, Paul Siermans.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, and it was definitely big shoes to fill. But honestly, I think just coming from like a quarterback program, you said, I think filling in that position, I have done pretty good at.
Yeah, no, you have. What other sports do you play? I want to say you play baseball too, but I might be wrong about that.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Football and baseball.
Right. Okay. So quick thought, JJ Yodice, who I just interviewed a week or two ago, who's still just a junior, makes a commitment to go to Texas to play baseball. I'm curious. I asked JJ if he played any other sport. I don't think he plays football. And I'm wondering, man, a kid like that, how fantastic it would be to have a guy like that in your offense.
Yeah.
I mean, JJ's a big guy.
Oh yeah. Yes, sir. I mean, last baseball season, I tried so hard to convince him to come and play wide receiver, just because everyone needs a big wide receiver. And growing up, we played football together. He was wide receiver. He was really good at it. So I thought, might as well try.
No, and look, I get it. I mean, kids who think they have a big future in a single sport, like JJ does with baseball, you don't want to run the risk of getting hurt. I'm thinking about a Sandia football player named Gad Harris, who is a sophomore and one of Sandia's best boys basketball players. And he went out and suffered a fractured fibula last week or the week before, and now he's done for the rest of football season, and he's going to miss a huge chunk of basketball season. And Sandia was a team that probably had a good chance to open as the Class 5A favorite next year, even ahead of Volcano Vista. And I get it. It's sometimes hard, especially if you're a football player. You want to stay healthy for maybe your primary sport. In JJ's case, that would be baseball. In Gad Harris's case, who's a skill position player for Sandia, it would be basketball. So I get it. I mean, these guys are like, I don't want to run the risk of having that happen to me where I tear an ACL or I break a leg or something. I get it. And I'm thinking, if you're JJ, he probably wants to play. He just knows it's not probably in his best interest to go out there and run the risk of, taking a helmet to the knee or something. But it's too bad because I mean, this offense with somebody like him, I mean, giving you an additional weapon, my gosh, how much fun would that be?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Okay. Well, Kaiden, listen, I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to visit with us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good luck on Saturday. I think you're playing Albuquerque guys Saturday afternoon at Milne, I want to say.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I will see you a week from Friday for the big La Cueva game. I mean, in essence, with all due respect to the other teams in this district, El Dorado, Albuquerque High, whoever down the road, this is pretty much a district championship game. So I'll be writing about that a little bit more next week. But stay healthy, and we'll see you next week. Kaiden, thanks so much for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Okay, you bet. Okay, that was Kaiden Reese. I thank Kaiden for his time today. He took a little bit of time before the Tigers practice this afternoon. As I said, it's Wednesday as I'm visiting with you, even though the podcast drops on Thursdays. Let's get to my next guest. Sebastian Noel, somebody I've known for quite a few years. He is the lead voice for ProView Networks. He's at all their big games. He does their My 50 TV game of the week every Friday. If if you follow high school sports, you know who Sebastian is, and you've seen him around football stadiums and the gymnasiums, maybe even the baseball fields. So he and I chatted as well earlier today. So here is my visit with Sebastian as we look ahead to the second half of the season. Here is Sebastian Noel, the lead voice from ProView Networks, and also does the My 50 Game of the Week on TV every Friday. Which game are we doing this week? You and I are better at the same game, Rio Rancho and Cibola.
Yeah, you're going to love this, James, but I never thought we would flex into a Cibola Cougars game.
Nice.
But that's exactly what we've done, right?
That's right. I mean, right. You got to back off La Cueva and El Dorado, which I assume was
Absolutely.
the first choice. Yeah, right. And that's what I was going to do too. I was going to do La Cueva and El Dorado, and I'm like, you know what? Rio Rancho and Cibola is the better game. So I did the same thing. I'm sending one of my gang to Wilson Stadium to do La Cueva and El Dorado. Yeah, this is Cibola's biggest regular season game, and I don't even know how many years. It's been a while. And why don't we start there too? So, look, all the other two 6A districts have already gotten started. So District 1 6A now comes into the picture this week after everyone was on a bye week last week. So we've got Cleveland and Farmington. We've got Piedra Vista and Volcano Vista on Thursday. And then we have the big game of the week, which is Rio Rancho and Cibola. Look, Cibola is very close to being 5-0. They could be if they had not given up a late lead to Albuquerque High in week 1 with like 39 seconds left. Cibola would be 5-0. The question is how legit a 5-0. I think this game, more than any game they've played, in my opinion, will tell us where Cibola truly is at if we're thinking about the 6A pecking order.
I mean, they're running the football, they're playing defense. I mean, they're doing the things that tend to translate into playoff football, right? But I do agree with you. I mean, yeah, they've gotten the wins. It's been a beautiful story, but now they really get to test their mettle in that district. But I mean, this game could be for a home game in the playoffs, or a bye, I mean, I should say, right? So it's monumental importance.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And look, Cibola has managed to they're 4-1. They've managed to do this, and they've been rotating quarterbacks. Normally, I would say this is not necessarily the kind of formula you'd want long term for the course of a whole season, but Cibola and Coach David Howes, they're making it work. You got Hayesbaum, primarily, who's been the big playmaker among the two quarterbacks with his running ability. And, of course, he's still playing defense where he's, one of the state's two best linebackers, along with Colton McKibben from Carlsbad. But I am with you. I like this defense very much. I've only seen them once, so I don't have a full picture. I need to see a little bit more from them, especially on the offensive side. But I do agree with you. I like this defense a lot. They hit. They move well to the ball. They play with a lot of energy. I like that side of the ball. And if they can keep playing at this level, they're going to give themselves a chance. Maybe not against Cleveland or even Volcano, but they'll give themselves a chance against a team like Rio Rancho.
Yeah, and even the young quarterback, Mays, right? Like,
right.
He does a lot of things that show you why he's on the field, right? Like, does he lead? Is there some things that maybe he's not great at? Yeah, the deep ball comes to mind. Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's working. He that intermediate pass game, he can do some things, and that keeps Baum fresh. I mean, yeah, it's been a pleasant surprise, and I think it might just be sustainable.
I think my only minor issue is here. Whenever Mays is in the game versus when Hayesbaum is in the game, you're almost telegraphing what you're going to do. If Hayes is in the game, 95% chance the ball is going to be run in some form or another. When Mays is in the game, more likely we're going to see the ball in the air. You don't necessarily want to pigeonhole yourself where defenses can get a read on that kind of thing. That would be my only thing. Hayes can throw it a little. Obviously, I wouldn't describe him as a great passer, and that's not a debit against him. He's just not a natural quarterback, but he's so physical. He can run the ball, and he moves so well. He's been really efficient that way. But the sustainable part, I think, only works if Cibola keeps it creative, and if you have Hayes in the game in a run situation and they throw it, or if Mays is in the game in a pass situation and they run it. I mean, you got to keep defenses honest a little bit. They're going to face some good defenses here in the second half, Rio Rancho, Volcano, and Cleveland in particular. So I think if they can keep it fresh and keep defenses guessing a little bit, yeah, I think they can make it work.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this week because I think you have one of the better defensive minds in the state in Philip Martinez at the coordinator spot there in Rio Rancho. Let's see how he handles that quarterback rotation and what they like to do.
Yeah, the good news for Rio Rancho is, I mean, look, Rio Rancho's lost 3 in a row, but none of these losses are really a big deal. They lost to Cruces, they lost to Centennial, and they lost to El Paso Eastlake. They've had a chance to see offenses, no offense, that are more dynamic than Cebola's. So I think Rio Rancho will be ready. That's why I think Cebola's going to have to find a way to keep things fresh and keep Rio Rancho guessing a little bit. I think that's, I wouldn't say Dave Howes would want to get too far astray from what ordinarily works for them, but I think they need to be careful not to just believe that their standard packages are just going to work. Rio Rancho will be prepared. So I'm looking forward to this game. Cibola is my alma mater. I'm glad to see them having a nice season. They only won 2 games last year. They've already got 4 this year. So I'm excited to see where Cibola is at. And like I said, I think this will be the first true test for Cibola in terms of how far along they have progressed just in these first 5 weeks under Dave Howes. And, we all knew Dave can really coach. So, he's got 2 undefeated state titles at Rio Rancho. So, we knew Cibola was going to be better. I don't know that I expected them to be this much better this quickly, but it's awesome to see. I had Hayes Baum on my podcast a few weeks ago. This team is excited, I think, to get in there and mix it up with Rio Rancho and Volcano and Cleveland. I think maybe even Volcano more than the other 2. Just to see where they're at. So let's reflect first before we talk about the second half of the season for me, which starts this week, really. Give me your thoughts about the first half of the year, what we've seen. Let's start with 6A. We've got Cleveland and we've got Las Cruces, who clearly look to be the 2 best teams. I haven't seen anything to suggest that anybody else in 6A can step in and beat either or both of these teams in a November playoff situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Centennial is probably the only team that's in that conversation, but I think what you see is just the separation. I mean, it's gotten significant, right, between those 2 and the rest. I mean, I don't know. You can't make an argument, I don't think, for anyone else other maybe than Centennial to even be standing at the end there. It's pretty drastic, the difference between those 2 and then the rest of the pack.
Yeah, as far as Cleveland goes, the good news for them is Evan Nanez, who got hurt in their last game, knee injury against El Paso Pebble Hills. I talked to Coach Robert Garza on Saturday of last weekend to ask him how Nanez was doing, because Nanez has been killing it. Him and Danny Amaro from Cruces have been the 2 most important 6A football players this year. And Evan went out early against Pebble Hills. There was some concern that the knee injury was going to be more serious. From what Robert tells me, it's not, but he is going to miss some time. Now, Cleveland doesn't need Nanez to come back in a hurry. Of course, Cleveland's coming off their bye week anyway. Cleveland can deal with Farmington and Piedra Vista and maybe even Cibola without Evan Nanez. The important thing for Cleveland is they got to have him back and healthy when they get to the last 2 games against Volcano Vista and against Rio Rancho. So I'm curious to see how they'll bring him back, how quickly or slowly they will bring him back. They don't want to run the risk of him getting hurt again. You don't want him to have too much rust, but I think if you're Cleveland, and maybe you agree with me on this or not, they have to be careful how quickly they bring him back, and no need to rush him back, at least not at the start. Give him time to heal. And I think that will be beneficial. And I think Cleveland can survive just fine until we get to those last 2 games when they certainly will need him.
Yeah, I mean, I would even go so far as to say, hey, I will hold him out until possibly the last game there with Rio Rancho. That be his tune-up game. That Volcano game tends to be pretty chippy. Volcano can get pretty physical, borderline dirty at times, right? So, you don't want to get him re-injured. I would be okay if I'm Coach Garza and targeting that last game as his tune-up before the playoffs because they're that good.
Yeah, that would certainly make sense. It's funny. We were talking about Centennial. I saw Centennial the first week when they played Cleveland. I went down to the Field of Dreams, and it was, I think, 55-42 was the final. Centennial had a good bit of offensive success against this Cleveland defense. And let's be fair, this Cleveland defense is not the same one that we've seen in other years where they were completely dominant and a shutdown unit, and you had to work like crazy just to even get double digits on this team. Las Cruces had some success and beat them, 38-34. Centennial had some success. You can move the ball on this Cleveland team. They're not impervious to giving up big plays or chunks of yards. But Cruces, by virtue, they've beaten Hobbs, they've beaten Rio Rancho, they beat Volcano, they beat Cleveland. the funny thing is they're clearly the favorite, but not a clear favorite, if that makes sense, if we're talking about Las Cruces. They've done all the work you need to, beating the ranked teams on their schedule. But I still wouldn't say that they're an overwhelming number one. I don't know where you come out on this.
No, I mean, I think if those two teams lock up again, it's still a toss-up, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I know they have the resume. They beat Cleveland, but there's nothing to indicate in a rematch in the championship that there wouldn't be a lot of people that picked the Cleveland Storm, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with Cleveland before. I mean, think about just last year. They lost at home to Centennial in the opener. And, their players repeatedly talked about it during the year, how that one loss triggered something in them. And then they went out and just absolutely dump trucked everybody else on their schedule all the way through the end of the season. Maybe not La Cueva so much because Cam Dyer was hurt, but they went out and just completely dominated after losing at home. So I'm kind of curious to see. Now, of course, it's a different group with different leadership, but I'm curious to see how Cleveland will react to that loss. Now, they came back and beat Pebble Hills after losing to Cruces, but when they get back into their district games, where they're going to have at least 3 good tests with Cibola and Volcano and Rio Rancho, how this team will respond in the second half, I'm really curious about that.
I think they'll have a big chip on their shoulder, too. I don't know about you, James, but I tend to, when those matchups occur between two teams that are pretty close in the rematch, I tend to favor the team that lost the first meeting because they got that huge chip.
Yeah, I mean, we see it so many times. One team, like La Cueva and Cleveland is a good example of this. One team beats the other early in the regular season, and then it goes completely differently in the championship game, which is why I always have such a hard time picking games. Artesia and Roswell is another good example. You never know what you're going to get from regular season game to a state semifinal or a state championship game. It makes it so hard to pick those games because you just, without spending time with the team that lost game one, it's hard to know. Some teams respond to that and just they find not only a new level, maybe 2 levels above, and they're a totally different team the next time you play. So that will be interesting if those two happen to hook up again. I wanted to ask you, I was thinking about this today for the first time. Now that now all 3 6A districts are getting started, I started to think about what 12 teams we're going to see in the playoffs. I think we have 10 for sure, I think, that are safe. You're talking about Cleveland, Rio Rancho, Volcano, Cibola, La Cueva, Los Lunas. I think El Dorado's safe. Hobbs, Centennial, and Cruces. I think those 10 probably are relatively safe. I'm curious. I'm curious what you think about where it's going to shake out at the bottom. You got teams like Carlsbad, which played Centennial really tough week before last. Alamogordo, who I think could easily get in. Piedra Vista, who beat Alamogordo head-to-head. Maybe even Albuquerque High, if they got hot. They'd have, of course, Albuquerque High has this terrible loss to Santa Fe, which is going to be a real stain on their resume, but they still have a chance to play a couple of good teams and could play their way back in. So I think all those teams, Alamo, Carlsbad, Piedra Vista, Albuquerque High, those 4 are the 4 I'm thinking about that are going to fill the last 2 spots. Do you agree, disagree? Is there another team I'm not thinking about that might be in there? Like maybe in Oregon Mountain, for example?
Oregon Mountain puzzles me, James. I think that they have a little more talent than their record indicates, but they are what their record says they are. I mean, this is yet another year that I've always been a big believer in there's too many football classifications, and you can see it again. There's not 12 quality teams that are going to round out this field, right? So
100%. I mean, I 100% agree. I've done this job long enough. I remember when there were 4 classes, and that seemed perfectly fine for everybody. We had class 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A, and now we have 5 11-man classes, even though we have a class 6A for some bizarre reason that still puzzles me. We still only have 5 11-man classes. 4 probably would be more appropriate. I'd be okay with that. I mean, of course, the state has grown since when I first started this job when I was a kid. But yeah, there are too many classes, and there just are not enough good teams, not just in 6A, but in the other classes as well. We see this with 5A. Like a team like Valley got in as a 12 seed last year, didn't have a very good season. On the other hand, you had a team like Chaparral, who was a 12 seed in the 4A bracket and ends up not just winning in the first round, but shutting out a team that beat them the previous week in Portales, which maybe gives pause there and say, okay, well, you don't want to necessarily rule them out. But in general, I agree with you. We don't have, we only have 21 6A teams. 12 of them, are they worthy for state? No, probably not. We have, 8 to 10. Yes. Beyond that, you're just, it becomes a participation thing more than anything.
Well, and it holds true in the lower levels too. I mean, traditionally, you look at a lot of the 2A powerhouses, your Eunices, your Texacos. Talk a little bit about Santa Rosa. They have traditionally always been able to compete up a class with those 3A schools. Because if you look at 3A as a whole, pretty much all the teams in 3A that are really good are always in that one district. So 2A and 3A could very easily be combined and still be highly competitive because those 2A teams have proven they can beat those 3A teams.
Yeah, and St. Mike's has a little bit of separation on everybody else. I was up in Santa Fe week before last to watch them play Eunice, and St. Mike's rather just steamrolled them. But in general, I believe you are correct. There are enough good 2A teams out there to sprinkle in with 3A teams. And honestly, 2A teams have great success against the 3A schools, especially I'm thinking like West or Robertson or Hope Christian maybe, or somebody like that. The 2A schools do just fine. Right down the line, Loving, Eunice, Jow, Texaco, you mentioned Santa Rosa, who's ranked number 1 in 2A. All these teams have had lots of success against not just 3A schools, but the good 3A schools. Like I said, I'm not going to include St. Mike's there because they're on one of those runs right now. But yeah, we could condense and consolidate, I think, a little. But the NMA likes to have, more classes means more state champions. Which I don't necessarily hate, but it does make for some. It makes for some games, especially early in the playoffs, that are not very competitive, and you're thinking, yeah, why is this team here? They got in because there was nobody else better, and that happens too often, but it is what it is. I have a question before we get to this one topic that I want to get to. I want to ask you about the second half. Tell me how you think the second half plays out. What are you looking for? Across the board, not just in 6A, but 5A, 4A with a team like Pius, who I'm going to see for the first time this week on Saturday when they play Academy. I haven't seen either one of those teams in person actually yet this year. And Pius is supposed to get their quarterback Isaiah Carpenter back this week, and they're coming off a big road win at Silver. Right down the line, tell me what you're expecting from the second half.
Okay, I'll start with Pius, and at the risk of creating some bulletin board material, and don't let my rant clout your judgment of what you're about to see, okay?
Never.
I think Pius, honestly, James, I think they could win a state title just on talent alone. But I don't think I've seen enough progression. Like, I've watched a few of their games, and I just think they're so stinking talented that sometimes they coast on talent, right? Like, sometimes body language isn't great on the sideline. Just there's little things that I'm like, man, like, are these guys all locked in? Because I think they could win a state title just on talent alone. But if they were ever all locked in on all the other little intangibles, I think they'd be unbeatable by, I don't know, up a class even. I love that St. Pius team. I love Cale Cox-Liggins. I think is one of the best, probably the best receiver. Or one of the best. I know there's some 6A names that'll probably take offense to that.
He's in the top 5 in the state, regardless, I would say.
Yeah, quarterback is a gunslinger, right? The arm strength is unmatched, and then Herschel Holloway just he keeps showing you that the size doesn't matter. He's ripping off 240-yard games every single week. I just think when I watch them in person, I think they're almost too good for their own skin. Like, they are just so talented that they get by. I guess what I'm asking is Coach Flake's able to challenge them enough during the year and correct mistakes? Because, like, even the game I was doing, the last game, they would make a mistake, but then on the next play they'd go 90 yards for a touchdown. And I was doing the game with Anthony Ansatig, a former coach, and he brought up the same point. He's like, it's a lot harder to coach guys and coach through their mistakes when they can rip off a 90-yarder right after a mistake. I thought it was an interesting point.
Yeah, the one game it's too bad it never got completed was the game they had at Moriarty, and they were down 14 points early in that game. And, last year Moriarty came to Albuquerque and was leading St. Pius 22-0 before Pius eventually came back and won. I would like to have seen how that game played out, which I think speaks to your point a little bit about how they overcome a poor start or a poor stretch during a game and see how it plays out. We didn't get a chance to see that, and I don't know that we'll see it with Academy this week, but, they still have some tough games ahead. Silver is coming up here in about 2 weeks, I think. Chaparral is up here to play them. They still have to play Manzano, which to me has been a little bit schizophrenic, but Manzano's got some talent.
Portales is up here to play them, and that's usually a pretty
Yeah.
good game, but Portales is a head scratcher this year as well.
Look, Portales was 0-5 last week, and then they come up here and play Valencia, who I think is a pretty decent 4A team, and they just beat the snot out of them. I mean, beat them like by 35, 38 points for a team that was unranked and winless, and then they show up like that. And I talked to someone who was at the game and said that it was just one of those days for Valencia. They had trouble holding on to the ball, turnover issues that were turned into quick points, some bad special teams. So, and I get it. Sometimes a team has a game like that, but to lose to a winless, unranked team by 38 points, I think, at home, that was a red flag for me. But maybe Portales is getting its act together a bit. But yeah, you're right. Pius still has some fun games ahead. In that district. And I'm excited. We were talking about Herschel Alloway, who reminds me a little bit of Jordan Bird from Manzano in this way. Look, Herschel is a state 100-meter champion, probably the second or third best sprinter in the state last year after Tanner Montano from La Cueva and Bryce Melton from Santa Fe. Jordan Bird, of course, was a state sprinting champion. Herschel Alloway is built kind of similarly. If we're talking about height and weight, those kind of proportions, he's built very similarly to Jordan. And he's got that it thing that you just know when you see it. And Alloway's out there busting. I mean, the kid can bust an 80-yarder from anywhere on the field. You just never know. He's got that special thing that allows a team like Pius to go on the road, play at Silver, and beat them by 3 touchdowns. And Silver's a good team. And you do it without Isaiah Carpenter in the game. That is a fantastic thing because Silver's got to know Alloway is going to be getting the lion's share of the touches, and they still can't do anything about it. That's when you've got a great player. You can give him the ball, and even if you know he's getting it, you still can't do anything about it.
Yeah, he's pretty special, and he's put on. You could tell he's put the work in the weight room between seasons as well because he has bulked up even at his limited stature. So, yeah, I mean that's I want to continue to watch them the rest of the year, but I don't even think those guys are close to scratching their potential yet, and that is scary.
I said last year I thought St. Pius was built to win a state title in 2025 this year, and then they got all the way to the state final. Last year had a good draw, played well. I think they matured a little faster maybe than I thought they would. And they got their butts handed to them in the second half anyway. That game was tied at halftime with Bloomfield, and then Bloomfield blew them out in the second half. But they got a taste. So if you're talking about a minute ago, you were talking about can Curtis Flakes kind of keep them focused and motivated? I think that's the thing that St. Pius has that nobody else has, which is they get to the final, they're tied at halftime. And even though they lost the game by 5 touchdowns, I mean, the game, when they went into halftime, it was 22-22. So Pius got a taste. And I think those are the kind of teams, like we were talking about rematches, like sometimes you want to pick the team that lost the first game when they play again. This is how it works sometimes with teams that lost in the state final. And you think, yeah, they have that thing, that special motivation that nobody else has. Not even Bloomfield, who's the defending champion.
And I hope my critique didn't sound like too much of a criticism because leave no doubt, I'm still picking St. Pius to win a state title.
I am too.
I just, for me, their expectations are through the roof. I'm very, very high on that team, and I don't think they've reached their capabilities yet as a team and as individuals.
I wrote before the season that I would say St. Pius's group of skill position kids, Isaiah Carpenter, Herschel Alloway, Cal Cox-Liggins, Curtis Flakes, I would put them up against any group of skill kids on any team I've seen. And and I've seen all the good 6A teams now. I haven't seen anything that would change my mind. Of course, Cruces has Gunnar Guardiola and Danny Amaro. Cleveland has Jordan Hatch and Evan Nanez. But I'd take St. Pius's group of skill kids. If you're talking just pure skill and ability, I'd take them against anybody at any level in the state, whether it was Artesia or Cleveland or Cruces or Centennial or anybody. That group is just unbelievably special. And they're still, and like you said, they're still growing. None of them are even seniors yet.
And I agree with you. And defensively, Flakes has just been a beast this year. It seems like he's taking a pretty big jump in the offseason, too. He's always around the ball. You could see a lot more out of him this year. I mean, he's really good. Yeah, that team's scary.
Yeah, he's as good a defensive. He's as good a defensive back as I think we have anywhere in any class. And I'm kind of excited. In a couple of weeks, we've got Bloomfield coming down here for their only visit to the metro area. They're playing playing Bernalillo on a Friday night. I think this is the 17th. and it's a good doubleheader that day. Silver's up here to play Academy, I think, during the day, and then Bloomfield is coming down to play Bernalillo, Bernalillo is one of those other teams that confounds me. I still don't have a good read on them. They've won several close games, games that they were losing and probably had no business winning, but they've found a way. So the whole 4A division is really interesting and complex. But I'm excited to see Bloomfield in person in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from Friday. As you and I talk, it's October 1st, so that's 16 days from now. Bloomfield will be down here to play Bernalillo, and I'll be super interested to see where Bloomfield is at. I mean, they've got one of the state's best running backs, and their new quarterback, Manuel Chavarria, has been really good. Not as good as Blake Spencer, of course, but that's to be expected. Spencer was really special for Bloomfield last year, but Chavarria has been putting up some good numbers, and they don't appear to have a huge drop off at all. So I'm really fascinated to see how that will play out. And personally, I would love it if we had another Bloomfield Pius game, which of course would be here this year. Since the state final was in the Four Corners last year. So if those two happen to meet again in the state championship game, we'll be out at Community Stadium for that one, which would be a lot of fun.
Right. And just quickly on Bernalillo, they have gotten really good at winning those tight games in low scoring games. As long as the game's a rock fight and, that goon squad defense that they pride themselves on, they've gotten really good at pulling those games out.
Yeah. Look, they were down 14-2 to Valley at halftime in the opener. They came back and won 16-14. They beat Highland in overtime, hitting like a humongously long play just to tie the game. They were down 8-2 late in the game, and then hit like an 85-yard touchdown in the last minute and a half, missed the extra point, go to overtime and win it. They went on the road to Portales. They were down in that game. They came back and won that game in overtime. So, yeah, you're talking about rock fight. That's a good way to put Bernalillo. They like to get in these scraps. Matter of fact, last week's their win over Espanola Valley was the first one they had this year that was genuinely just stress-free. I'm sure it was kind of a unique situation for them.
How's this for a segue, James? If Pius is playing in a championship game this year, we would be here, you said, right?
Right. They played in Bloomfield last year.
But if
they play Bloomfield, yeah.
Right. But I'll be calling a 6A championship game. So, boy, will it be disappointing that I can't watch Pius because I'm calling another game that's played on the same day at the same time.
You just mentioned a segue, and it's funny you should put that exactly that way because the last thing we're going to talk about. Okay, so this came up. I'm here in the studio here on the Journal campus where we do the podcast. Our newsroom, our Journal sports department is just across the hall. It turns out that Jeff Symbieta, who has his own morning show on 6:10 a.m., was talking about, in light of the big crowd that came for UNM and New Mexico State, and there were some infrastructure issues, long lines, not enough bathrooms at both ends of the stadium. It was pretty clear UNM is not well-versed in handling large crowds like that because they just never have to do it. So Jeff Grammer from our sports department wrote a story about this week. And Jeff Symbieta, and I didn't hear it, but apparently it was relayed to me today, right before you and I started our conversation. And it got me just completely fired up that Jeff Symbieta said that we should just build a new football stadium, which I actually happen to agree with as a Lobo grad. I do not like University Stadium as a venue. I think it's a terrible place to watch a game. There's no ambiance. There's no electricity. The fans are too far from the field. I don't particularly like it. So I would not mind if we built a new stadium. But one thing that Jeff Symbieta said this morning, which circles back to what we were just talking about Pius, perhaps playing a 4A game here on the same day as a 6A game, was Jeff apparently said, then if we get a new stadium, finally, we can centralize all the state football championship games, and so everybody can watch them. Now, this is something that I am adamantly opposed to for reasons that I don't necessarily need to rehash here. Primarily, one of my big problems has been we don't have an iconic enough venue, I think, to do that. I've never heard one kid in my whole career say, damn, I wish we could have played at University Stadium. I've just never heard that. Other states do this, and it works for them because a lot of these states, like neighboring states like Colorado, Arizona, Texas, they have world-class facilities, stadiums where an NFL team plays, where they can put state championship games in these buildings. Because the kids want to play on a field where an NFL team has played. Hey, Tom Brady played on this field once, or Peyton Manning played on this field once, or whatever it might be. We've never had the the special enough venue to make that work. So that's one reason I'm adamantly opposed. I would be curious to get your take on this because I was so fired up before I came over here. I hate the idea of centralization. I always have. But if they built a venue that was attractive enough, I probably could soften a little bit to that. And I'm curious, and you and I don't know that we've ever really had to talk about this, about centralization and whether we should go that way like we do with basketball or whether we should keep it as is.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts about that. And Jeff and I have talked about it on the radio before, and he and I always kind of lean towards your side, and I was making that point with Jeff, like you have that experience of a championship game in Eunice, right? And because I just use that as an example because it's a great game day atmosphere. They close down the town. There's a parade down the city's main road to get the teams to the stadium. They don't sell concessions. They cook everything outside and just give it away for free. It's cool. They rent the band from Hobbs, so they have a band there. And why take that away from a city like Eunice? And, and James just launched, Jeff just launches into Tasty Freeze jokes. Oh, well, the Tasty Freeze is making a lot of money that day, right? So I know where he stands. But, I'm not as committed to centralized. I've always leaned towards the other way. Now, here's my caveat, and there's a couple things I want you to think about, see how you feel about them, right? One being, for example, if we have 2 championship games in the metro area, they should not be played at the same time. That is ridiculous. There's enough fans that would want to go see a Metro 6A team and then a St. Pius. So either they need to play at the same venue back to back, but for no reason should those teams be playing at the same time. That's not how you grow the game. The other thing is now, here's my ProView Networks perspective a little bit, right? And you see during the playoffs, the NFHS network just gets killed for quality of their streams, right? Sometimes people think it's our fault, right? But you can imagine how good the internet is at a wooden press box in Logan, New Mexico, right?
Right.
It's not great. So we're always at the mercy of internet speeds at these rural stadiums, and undoubtedly the speed is not good. The stream ends up being not good, and the NFHS network just gets bombarded with complaints. That's the one aspect. Okay, if there was some centralizing, I think from a quality perspective, the quality of the broadcast would be better. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, how do you take championship Saturday out of Artesia, out of Roswell, out of Eunice, out of some of these places, right? Like, but in a metro area, if it makes sense, like if there's 2 or 3 games in a metro area, absolutely, those should be centralized and they shouldn't be played at the same time. But that's, I guess, I don't know if you think I'm sitting on the fence. That's how I've never had a strong opinion either way.
No. It's well spoken and well articulated. The time thing, of course, that's the big thing. Adam Deal, who you and I both know, he and I have gone back and forth on this a lot. He's one of those people that has been just aching to get games centralized, so fans don't have to make a choice. I've often said, look, New Mexico's not a football state. It seems natural, but we're not a football state. And on top of that, we're just a very strung out geographic state as well. You can have championship games, like last year. I mean, we had games in Bloomfield and we had games in, we had them across the southern half of the state too. I mean, games were spread out all across the state. I do agree with you about the time. I mean, hypothetically, if Pius and Bloomfield were playing at Community Stadium and Las Cruces and Cleveland were playing up at Cleveland, yeah, I would have no problem at all. And actually, to be honest with you, I don't think I really ever thought about it in that context. So I appreciate your point of view on that, because I think you make a good point. You don't have to play them at the same time. You can have one game at noon, one game at 4, and give people a chance, or even 3, and give people a chance to get to both games. I have no problem with that at all.
Here's another thing I brought up last year. I said, if La Cueva's hosting a championship, I know how Brendan Back feels about it. He wants to play at Wilson. It's in the Heights. And I brought up last year, I said, you know what? Maybe that shouldn't be his choice. We have the nice facility right there on the west side. Community Stadium is the nicest facility. It has the best parking. It has the most seating. It's the most well-equipped to host a championship.
And it's the most fan-friendly. To watch a game, it's by far the most fan-friendly of the 3 public stadiums.
So if there's an APS team in the championship, and obviously if it's an APS team, it's going to be La Cueva, I'm sorry. I think they should cross the river, because it's a lot more fan-friendly to be playing at Community Stadium if there's an APS representative.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I have said before, and I'm on record with this with many people, that if you were going to centralize, here in Albuquerque for whatever. Community Stadium is a better fit than University Stadium, in my opinion. It can accommodate all the fans that are going to want to attend the game. I sometimes think there's not as much of an appetite for neutral fans to just spontaneously show up and watch Santa Rosa play Texaco or watch Roswell play Artesia. And of course, that brings up a whole nother point about whether Roswell and Artesia should be asking their two fan bases to drive 200 plus miles up here to play.
Shouldn't.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They can go to, if you're going to do it that way, go play in Hobbs. Hobbs is a regional facility that's the biggest stadium outside of the two universities. It's bigger than Western, bigger than Highlands, bigger than Eastern. Hobbs seats like 11,000 people. If Roswell and Artesia are playing in a state championship game, have them go play in Hobbs if you're that concerned. It's a little bit of a drive, but you're not asking those fan bases to come all the way to Albuquerque just to satisfy people who won't go to a game and travel. Same thing with like Cruces and Centennial or Eunice and Jal. Nobody in their right mind would want to ask schools that are located close geographically, a far chunk from Albuquerque, to suddenly pack everything up and come here just for our benefit.
No.
Find a regional site. We have other regional sites that could work. I do believe in that regionalization of state championship games. I like that. I remember one year Ruidoso played Cobre in a state championship game. This is maybe 12 or 13 years ago, and they agreed on the Field of Dreams in Las Cruces as a central location, or as a neutral location rather. And it worked out fantastic. It was a great environment. Both fan bases were well served. It wasn't a terrible travel imposition for either school, and it worked out fantastic. I like that idea. If you get Roswell and Goddard playing or Artesia and Lovington playing, put them in a neutral stadium near the two schools, near enough that it's not a hardship where, everybody's got to travel up here just because that's the way it's done. I don't like that. But if we were going to centralize at all, Community Stadium to me is the best place to do it for all the reasons you stated, from an infrastructure standpoint, and because it's just the best place to watch a game. It's like in a little bowl. Yeah, it's a fantastic place to watch a game. There's no track keeping the fans further away. Everything you're right on top of the field there. I love that idea. And I've said that before. And I'm going to have to have a long talk with Jeff Symbiate about this because I'm going to have to get after him. Matter of fact, I may text him as soon as I finish my podcast today and let him know, what are you talking about, bro? We can't do these centralization things that don't work.
Ask him about the Tasty Freeze in Eunice. He'll know. I'm going to. Who you talk to.
Until you said it, I did not know that Eunice co-opted the band from Hobbs.
Well, yeah, every year. So I've had the privilege of doing a few championships at Eunice, and they usually get the band from Hobbs so they can the game day atmosphere in Eunice. If you ever get a chance, James, it's phenomenal. It's pretty special.
I actually did a state championship game in Eunice, like late 80s, early 90s against Manal. This was, I was just a kid back then. And honestly, I don't remember, Sebastian, if they did that back then or not. Maybe that's a new wrinkle they added.
Well, the stadium been renovated. The facility, it's a mini Artesia as far as facilities. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Look, I have a soft spot for these campus championship games wherever they are, and I've done them in a lot of cities. And you've probably done them as many, if not more than me, just because of your broadcasting responsibility. But if I'm thinking about all the cities I've been to where they've had state championship games like Cruces and Artesia, Roswell, Clovis, Lovington, all those towns, and a couple of other smaller towns in there that I'm not even thinking about. But you can't replicate the environment and the electricity and the meaning that it has to that individual community, which is one thing I've always cited. You can't replicate that if you bring it to Albuquerque, whether it's to University Stadium or some future new stadium or even a community stadium. These campus environments are just so unbelievably special and unique, and I would hate to see that go away. I'm resigned to the fact that maybe someday it will, and I'll just have to deal with it. But I would hate to see it go away. I'd hate the fact that Leon Williams Stadium in Clovis would never host a game again. And I get it, Clovis isn't very good right now, but I can't tell you how many Saturday afternoons I spent there for championship games, or at the Field of Dreams, or in Artesia, or at Wool Bowl, Lovington. I covered Brian Urlacher's last high school game, which was a state championship game against Silver back in 95, maybe. You just can't replicate that kind of environment.
Now, what I would like to see go away is the nonsense of who owes who. I'll preach to the high heavens about that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've kind of shifted my opinion. I used to be very strict the other way. I'm like, I don't mind the who owes who because it seemed like the same teams were always getting into the semis and finals. I'd say I've probably done a 180 on this, and I'd say, yeah, I'd be okay if we just switched it up and the top seed gets to host until they get knocked out, and then it'd be the next highest seed and so on. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I used to think I would never come off that position, but I would say you were correct. Now I'd say the who owes who thing. People are baffled by it, but the NMAA, I can tell you, they have no intention of getting rid of that anytime soon. This comes up at board meetings all the time, and apparently the board of directors, they still like it because it gives other teams a chance to host. I mean, if we had the number one seed always hosting, then La Cueva, Cleveland, Artesia, Roswell, those teams would be hosting 2-3 playoff games every single year. I think the NMA still likes the idea that other teams get a chance to host. But I'm with you on that. I used to feel one way. I've changed my mind on that. I'm okay if we got rid of that part of it and the who owed who. Well, we're playing Santa Rosa and Texaco in Santa Rosa because the last time they played in the playoffs was 1972 in Texaco. So now we're playing in Texas. Now we're playing the game in Santa Rosa.
But Texaco is going in with an undefeated record and they're having a phenomenal year, and it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and
makes sense.
Yeah, and that does happen more often than I think people realize. So I'd be okay if we got rid of that, but knowing the NMA as I do, that is not changing. Maybe the centralization will change someday as well. I'm resigned to it. I won't like it. I mean, if I had a chance to watch a 5A final and a 6A final on the same day or over the same weekend, that would not be terrible. I'm not saying I would object to that, but I like the format we have now. Plus, as I said, I mean, you get teams located in a geographic area, like St. Mike's and Robertson's a good example. And granted, those two schools are not as far from Albuquerque as, say, Roswell and Artesia, or Cruces and Centennial, or even back in the day, Cruces and Mayfield, who played in the state championship game in 2013. One of my favorite championship games ever, that was won on a blocked extra point, a 27-26 game, and there were like 27,000 people there at Aggie Memorial Stadium. To think about centralization, you're going to ask those two teams to come up here and play. Why? If I was those two schools, I'd say, no, we're going to play it right here. If you don't want to give us a trophy, don't, but we're going to play it here. We're not going to play it there just because you say so. It works in basketball for a whole different reason because you can play 8 games in the Pit on a single day. It works for that reason, and the Pit's an iconic venue, and it's old, and boy, does it need a bunch of facelift work, but the Pit is still an iconic venue. We don't have that here. If we ever get that, maybe it works, but I like it the way it is. I like getting out on the road. And that's one big thing too. I love road trips. I love getting on the road wherever I go, whether it's to the Four Corners or whether it's to Cruces or the southeastern part of the state. Man, I love getting out and watching these schools stage a big game. It doesn't even have to be a championship game. It could be a semifinal game or something. I love watching these communities come together and have all the protocols and the celebration that go with high school football. So I'm glad you and I are on the same page that way.
And yeah, the road trip part of it is, I mean, I like to see who's going to give me the best free green chili cheeseburger. And right now it's tough. Melrose is probably near the top. Logan's really good. I mean, but those communities, again, the game day atmosphere, the way they embrace it, from concessions all the way to the game, they just do it right. And it would be unfortunate to ask them to alter that.
I think you and I had this conversation once briefly, and you had mentioned your Yodice experience. We were talking about the topic of centralization came up, and you had chimed in that you I think were leaning one way, and then after you did this game in Yodice, yep. I don't even remember what year it was, but you came in and said, you know what, I think I agree with James, and these campus experience championship games are so unique and so special. Let's keep it the way it is. But so anyway, I'm going to find Jeff Simieta probably before the end of today is over, and I'm going to give him a piece of my mind and let him know. I mean, if you're talking point counterpoint, this is the holy trinity of arguments here with high school football. Sebastian, listen, thank you so much for hopping in. I know we've had fun doing our picks this year. Thank you for that too, by the way. Sebastian and I have been picking high school football winners this season. I've had a couple of good weeks, but I think I still only lead you by 3 games total. And honestly, we've had a couple of 1-point games the last couple of weeks. Valley and Mira and Goddard and Gadsden that were both 1-point games. And if they'd gone the other way, you'd be leading.
Yeah,
it's very close.
You've won all the 1-point games, James. That's what you're trying to say.
I have the last two. I have the last two. The last 2 weeks I have. So
we got to keep this close to keep readers intrigued, because if you're just kicking my butt by the end of the season, they'll be, oh, there goes Yodice again. And there's no intrigue. But if we're close and it looks like I can knock off the king at the very end, there will be more intrigue.
I like it. I like it. And I think you probably realize what I learned when I first started doing this. Picking winners, it's easy to do when you're just shooting the bull with someone and nobody's listening. It's harder to do when you put all your picks in print and then you're suddenly, whoa, suddenly it takes on a different weight. And it took me a few years to get used to that. And believe me, I still take losses very hard. I'm very competitive. But mostly I just want to get it right because this is my job. I should be getting it right. So it's tough when you put all your picks out there for everybody to see. It's different than when you're just having a private conversation with someone and you suddenly realize you're on the hook. And somebody may read something and they're like, what are you doing? Why are you picking that team? And when you lose a game, I picked Valencia over Portales and they lost by 38 points. And I'm like, wow, that is embarrassing.
And then you get those text messages from coaches that you're close with. Hey, you picked us to lose again, huh? Yeah, those were awkward. I didn't expect those.
Yeah. So you got to treat it like I'm not picking you to lose. I'm just picking another team to win. I know it's splitting hairs, but you got to let them know, hey, look, we're having fun with it. And I always tell people, have fun with it. You can come at me if I get something wrong. If I get a game massively wrong, come at me. I deserve it. I always tell people though, the caveat is if I pick your team to lose and you win and you want to give me some grief, I'm okay with that. But if I pick your team to win and you lose and I don't hear from you, then you forfeit the right to come at me later. It's like, you can't cherry pick. If I pick you to win and you lose, I want to hear from you then like, yeah, thanks, Yodice. I mean, you picked us. Sorry, we didn't come through. I don't want to hear from you just the other way when I pick you to lose and you win. So this is usually the way to diffuse the feedback. And they suddenly realize that I'm right. And they're like, yeah, you're right. I've discovered that's like a neat little trick, a little what's it called? A little life hack for a journalist. That's how you get them to kind of back off a little bit. But we're having fun with it, and we still have 5 weeks to go regular season. And then we go back to 0-0, and then we start fresh in the playoffs.
And this is the week, if I can spoil it, this is the week I got to pick my Del Norte Knights. So I'm hoping they ride to victory for their one win of the year.
Boy, yeah, and Sebastian is talking about the fact that Del Norte, who was winless 0-6, is playing Rio Grande, who was winless at 0-6, and those two teams are playing each other this week. And I've said this many times. I'm rooting hard for both of these teams to find their way back to relevance. I've seen Rio Grande win before. I've seen Del Norte win before. Gosh dang, Del Norte used to be ranked number 1 in the state, way back when I was just a young reporter. They were one of the state powerhouse teams. Rio Grande has shown signs of success periodically over the years. They haven't been able to sustain it. I would love it if both Rio Grande and Del Norte found a way to start winning some games. It's tough to watch them both struggle. So yeah, one of them's got to win. This weekend, I'm probably with you. I haven't made my picks yet. I haven't even seen your picks yet, but as we do this, I probably will pick Del Norte as well. They've been a little bit more competitive than Rio Grande, but I really do hope for those teams to have success. And it can happen. Look at a team like Gadsden. I mean, gosh dang, they were in that Las Cruces, Mayfield district for years and couldn't beat anybody, and they were never competitive. And then they finally got a way to go into a lower class, into 5A, and it's taken a few years, but now they're one of the best 5A teams out there. They found the right class. Manzano's all the way down in 4A now. I mean, it's only been 8 years since they won the 6A state title with Jordan Bird, and they beat La Cueva that year 14-7 in the 2017 state championship game. It's only been 8 years, and they're now down in 4A. But they're having success. They have found a classification that works for them. And it's good to see them winning some games.
I think they found a coach. They found a coach that they're patiently allowing to build his culture. And, he has that winning pedigree coming from Artesia, and he believes in what he's doing. And the results have been slow, but they're coming now. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah. They made the playoffs last year. They're 4-2. They lost their most recent game, and now I'm spacing out against who it was. But Manzano still has some key games coming up. But yeah, it's good to see them have success, and sometimes that's what you need. You got to find the right classification for a school in football. Fortunately, the MAA has now made it possible for teams to drop down into a lower class in football. If they've lost a certain percentage of their games in the class where they should be, they can ask to go down. And that has worked well for Manzano. And now they're in a class that fits them really well, and they're not elite. And even though it might seem like, why is Manzano playing in a classification with teams like Chaparral or Academy or whatever? You know what? They found a class where they're competitive, and I like that. And they're showing success, but not so much success that it would impede the progress of other schools. And frankly, and as a quick sidebar, if you drop down in class in football and then you go out and have a ton of success, they'll bump you right back up into a higher class. So it's not like you can just settle in a lower class and dominate for a while. If you go down, if Manzano were to have 2 really good seasons back to back or something, the NMAA will push them back into 5A and say, no, you've shown you have this winning percentage, and now you're moving back up again. So I like that. There are checks and balances here.
It helps rebuild those programs, right? Because then you can win a couple of games. You don't lose numbers. I always marvel at the athletes at, like, let's say at Del Norte or Rio Grande, right? That stick it through a season where maybe they don't win a game, I mean, think about it. You think it's probably a lot harder to be the quarterback at a Del Norte than to be the Jordan Hatch, right? I mean, Jordan Hatch is the king of the town, right? And at Del Norte or Rio Grande, just my hat's off to those kids for committing to a program, committing to a sport, walking the halls every week when you get your butts kicked, and sticking to something and not quitting. Those are life lessons that they're learning.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't mind if Del Norte and Rio Grande both at least temporarily dropped down like Manzano did into 4A, where they could definitely be more competitive, and they wouldn't have to deal with any of these 5A teams. And it's not like the district that Del Norte and Rio Grande in is loaded with great teams. It's not. I mean, Los Alamos is the best team in that district, but I wouldn't mind if they did the same thing that Manzano did and dropped down another class. I don't know if they can or will, but I think that would serve them pretty well in the short term, maybe get some success, maybe get more kids interested in the program. Yeah, like Steven Johnston, the Manzano coach, is doing with Manzano. And now they're winning some games and they're getting more kids interested in football. That's how you do it. I mean, you have to go backwards a step or two sometimes before you take a step forward. So anyway, that's another argument for another day, another discussion. Sebastian, listen, buddy, thanks for taking some time. I didn't mean to keep you this long. It was good to visit with you. And I will see you
immensely.
Yeah, and I will see you Friday night at Community Stadium.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, buddy. Sebastian Noel. Sebastian as well. He and I, we love talking high school sports, and I thank both he and Kaiden for their time today and taking time to visit with me. That's going to kind of close it out for me today. Before I leave, though, a couple of other notes, non-football related. Colton Floyd from Sandia, he's a junior at Sandia. On Monday of this week, made a verbal commitment to Texas A&M to play baseball. Colton, in my opinion, is a kid that could easily be drafted by a major league team the summer of 2027. He's 6'5", he's 225, a corner infielder. He can pitch a little bit too. He hasn't done a lot of pitching for Sandia. He was dealing with some arm soreness this last spring during Sandia's state championship season. Big bat, and one of the few kids I can ever remember on this job that teams deliberately pitched around in terms of intentionally walking him. I think he was intentionally walked 8 times just in the state tournament alone. That's a crazy number. I'll just tell you right now, that is a crazy number. Nobody wants to pitch to this guy. He's a beast. He just swings a very heavy bat. So I would not be surprised. I put this out on my social media content the other day. I would not be surprised if he never spends a day in College Station playing for Texas A&M. He's got that much upside, and he still has 2 full years just about of more development ahead of him. He could be a guy that goes very high in the draft the summer of 2027. Of course, that's quite a ways off, but I'll stand by what I said. I would not be surprised if he never gets to Texas A&M if he gets a high draft slot after his senior year with Sandia. And the other thing is, real quick, volleyball related, I got a chance to watch the state's number 1 team, undefeated Las Cruces. They won the Rio Rancho Volley Bash tournament final the other day. They beat La Cueva, the Metro champion, in 4 sets. And La Cueva was the first team all year to beat Las Cruces in a set in an official match, not a pool play match, which doesn't count as an official match. La Cueva actually played awfully well the last two sets. Las Cruces won the first two sets without too much difficulty. La Cueva won the third set, and the fourth set was really tight. And then Addison Massey, Las Cruces' big hitter, a big outside hitter. She's committed to Kansas State. She kind of took over toward the end of the match and gave Las Cruces the title. Las Cruces is 10-0 and looking to win a third straight 5A state title next month up here at the Rio Rancho Event Center. But I will give props to La Cueva. Those last two sets gave me reason to believe they could extend, if they could play at that level for all 5 sets, they could take Las Cruces right to the edge if they happen to meet again in the state tournament. So once again, thanks to both my guests today. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast, and I will see you next week, and we'll review Week 7's action this week, and we'll talk about some of the big football games in Week 8. Take care. Enjoy the football this weekend. We'll see you soon.